after spawning in on this beach on ARK Survival Ascended on day 1, I had a little look around, scratched my arm, and then had a look around at the beauty of the beaches of this new game that looked so much better than its previous one. And then I got to work with crafting a stone pickaxe and then leveling up. And as you can see, currently the only mod I'm using is the configurable cryopods, which I will add more mods later, but I will mention when I add them. And then with my pickaxe, I hit a tree and a rock to make some more tools.
Oh my god, so tiny, the little baby Lystro. I'm sorry for this, but I need to tame it. Got it. Let's harvest its mom right in front of it. Definitely won't scar the baby Lystro for life. Damn, these rocks look so pretty in this game. ARK Survival Evolved, just like some... Oh! Oh! Lystro! What? Kidnapped him! Kill this stupid bird.
And after witnessing my baby Lystro get taken away, I built a little thatch base and then went out to tame a new friend, which I decided to make a dodo. And after taming it, I brought it back to my base where I could hopefully keep it safe from some birds. And then I went out and tamed a dillo, as I decided I could need more help for defending. And then I found another dillo which I tamed. And then I brought them both back to my base when I heard a raptor killing something nearby. And instead of just running, I crafted a slingshot, as I decided that I could try and tame a raptor. And so after it killed whatever it was killing, it came for me, which I bowled it, and then started slingshotting it to knock it out. But then when I was knocking it out, some dodo came up and started attacking it, and I didn't want it to hurt the raptor, so I just knocked the dodo out. And then I was able to knock it out with a club right before it died. And then I finished off the dodo, and then I realized the dodo had some babies nearby, which after introducing a pickaxe into their cranium, I got some prime meat from them, which I fed to the raptor, taming it instantly. When I got back, I named the raptor Rachel, and then I went out on day 2 where I tamed a parasaur, and then when I brought it back to my base, you might realize I have spikes, and the reason I'm keeping this very short is because my game crashed, as you can see, and I didn't save, so I lost all that progress. Then when I set up spikes again around my base, I crashed, losing this progress again. So then I went out and killed a trike's parent as a replacement for the parasaur. And then after claiming the baby trike, I brought it back to my base and named her Tara. And with the trike, my plan was to get so many narco berries, and so after spoiling some meat and crafting a saddle for the trike, I went out, gathered some berries, and crafted some narcotics. With this, I crafted a bridge, as I didn't want to keep getting attacked by piranha when trying to cross the river, and I didn't have enough resources on me to finish the bridge, but when I came back by morning, I was able to finish this bridge. And then I got some more narco berries with the trike and crafted some more narcotics. Then I made the bridge wider, as the trike was struggling to get across it. And then I went to the other side of my base and crafted a bridge on that side, so I also wouldn't get attacked. And then I crafted my first refining forge to start smelting some metal, which then I placed down a smithy and got a metal pickaxe, which I used to hit these river rocks to give me some metal, which I smelted up in the forge. And with this metal, I was able to craft up a metal hatchet and a metal crossbow. And with the crossbow, I went out to tame some parasaurs, as I needed their storage, as my plan was to move base locations. I tamed 2 parasaurs, a high level and a low level. Which then, after the high level tamed, I packed up all my resources into all my dinosaurs, as I was ready to move base locations. But shortly into my journey, I remembered there was a beaver dam, which I grabbed, and no beavers attacked me, so I got some free paste. But not long after leaving, Colonel attacked, and I had to fight it, as I couldn't run away. And I had to hope that this guy was a low level and wouldn't kill many of my dinosaurs. And not long into the fight, my Parasaur and Rachel both died. And it revealed that the Kana was a level 135, near max level Kana, and I was luckily able to kill it with my trike. But then, not much longer into the journey, I got attacked by Microraptors, obviously. But then in this next clip, as you can see, I'm at where I wanted to build, but you couldn't see the long jump, and that's because some of the footage corrupted. And in that, well, my Parasaur died, unfortunately, to an Aloe, which I wasn't able to get much of its loot because it was already too heavy, but I did make it to this base location. And here, I set up some spike walls to defend myself, my trike, and my dodo. And after setting up the spike walls, I went ahead and started setting up a base, which I placed on a pillar, as this area is not a flat spot. So I had to settle it with building a pillar, and then some ceilings on top, and then placing a ramp to get up, which I placed my refining forge, smithy, and a box to make it a bit more homely up here. And then I sniped this pteranodon out of the air with a bowler, and then I started knocking it out with my crossbow. And it didn't take very long to knock out, as it was a pretty low level pteranodon. And after it tamed, I went to grab some water, and then I would run back to my base and try and craft a pteranodon saddle. And after getting enough stamina, I ran up to my base, where I realized I didn't have enough keratin to craft the saddle. So I found and killed an Anki to get some keratin, which I then able to craft the pteranodon saddle. And with this, I was able to fly up to the volcano to get some crystal, as I really needed a spyglass. When I was up here, I was able to gather some crystal, and then, after crafting my spyglass, I saw a 140 pteranodon near this blue drop, which I grabbed, which had some decent loot. And then, after following the pteranodon, it had eventually landed. And when it landed, I went ahead and loaded my crossbow as I was ready to tame it. So I went ahead and bowled it, and then got ready to start knocking it out when I heard a saber-tooth, and it went straight to killing the pteranodon. When I tried killing the saber-tooth, a terror bird came up. At this point, yeah, well, the 140 pteranodon died, unfortunately, which sucks, as my pteranodon was only a level 6. Then, in this next clip, I was up on Redwood's Mountain trying to tame an Argentavis, and I got up here with my pteranodon, but it died to a pack of raptors that was up here when I wasn't recording. And then I had a trap on me, which I set up for the Argentavis, which I was able to get into the trap pretty easily after killing the raptor. Once it was in the trap, I obviously just had to knock it out, which I did, and then I fed it some meat so it would tame. And after it tamed, I brought it back to my base, but I wasn't high enough level to craft the saddle, so I killed this alpha raptor, which gave me a nice metal pickaxe upgrade and enough levels to unlock the Argentavis saddle, which I then crafted shortly after. This would allow me to fly on my Argentavis, which had a lot more weight than my pteranodon, so I flew up to the Redwoods Mountain to gather some metal with it, as I was in desperate need for metal. I couldn't even repair my crossbow. And after getting some metal and bring it back to my base, I spotted a 140 RG, which I would happily take, as my current RG was only a level 115 when I had tamed it. So after bringing it back to my base, I was able to get it in a trap, and then I knocked it out. And then I went ahead, and when I was waiting for it to tame, I crafted up some flak armor to keep myself more safe. Then, after waiting for long enough, the Argentavis tamed up, which was great, as I now had a very high level Argentavis and had some nice stats. And then I tamed a male that was a low level, as both my Argentavis were females, and I wanted to get an imprinted Argent. And after level 10 tamed, I started breeding it with the high level, hoping to get the high stats so I could imprint. But I got a pink mutation on an Argentavis that had low stats, but I decided to keep it as I could breed the color into an Argentavis that had the high stats, which is what I did. And also crafted up some cryopods with some organic polymer I got from a Hesperornis. And after waiting for some eggs to hatch, I got the color on an Argentavis that had all the high stats. And for the first imprint, this Argentavis wanted a cuddle, which was great, as I didn't even have to use the cryopod. and on the second one, it wanted another cuddle, so I was able to get a 100% imprint without even re-rolling it with the cryopod. And after it grew up, I was able to fly around on it, and it was a very pretty looking RG with the pink body and the nice blue tip on the wing. But then when I logged back in, the Argentavis had just disappeared. I looked around on all my dinosaurs in the log, and it just was gone. So I had to breed a new one, which was okay, as I managed to get it pretty quickly. I got pretty lucky, which was great, as I did not want to have to sit around hatching eggs for a long time. And then, after it grew up, I started breeding its twin with another Argentavis, so I could get some eggs. In case this one disappeared again, I would have a backup egg. And with this Argentavis, I flew up to the volcano where I gathered some crystal, obsidian, and some metal. And after gathering these, I was able to fly back to my base, and then I went out to get supply drops, as I needed some loot. And when I was in Carnivore Island, I killed an Alpha Raptor, giving my Argentavis a heap of levels, getting it some crazy good stats. And when I got back from my supply drop run on day 14, this was all the loot that I got from it. It was a pretty good haul, but then after I logged out, my cryopods were empty on charge, even though I wasn't logged in, so I spawned in a cryo fridge to try and recharge them. And after they didn't charge for a long time, I logged in and out, and the cryopods just disappeared. So I installed another cryopod mod and spawned in the 5 cryopods I had. And luckily, because I had bred the twin, I had a spare Argentavis that I got the same stats as the old Argentavis. Then after spawning in its levels that I got on the old Argentavis to keep it fair with them, I flew out where I gathered a heap of oil from an island just in the snow, not too far in, so I wouldn't freeze to death. And then I went out searching for Therazinos. But then when I was doing so, I decided to tame a Phiomia, as I would eventually need it when I set up a garden. And when I was still looking, I killed an Alpha Raptor, which finally gave me a nice crossbow upgrade. And then I continued to look for Therazinos with the Spyglass mod I installed, and I found a high-level Therazino that had a really good health stat. And obviously, because I'm smart enough, I didn't bring a trap with me, so I had to craft one, and it was pretty bad, as I had wooden billboards, and it didn't even get in the trap the first time. And after flying around on my Argentavis, not knowing what to do, as I couldn't get in the trap, and every time I tried, it would just run around, I eventually managed to get it into what I thought was trapped, but then it just ran straight out the back, as I didn't have enough space, and it could just fit through the gap. But then eventually, when it came back, it just started attacking this billboard, which obviously just broke. It was made out of wood. And then it just started attacking the other billboard, which I just took advantage of and kept knocking it out. And once again, it broke this billboard, and instead of attacking another billboard, it just got in this corner, where I was able to once again take advantage of that and knock it out, which I did by morning. It knocked out, and then after waiting for a very long time, at the end of the day, the Therazino tamed up.
Please tell me that this thing has over 40 points into health. 42! Yes, this is actually a very good health Therazino. That's really good. I'm happy with that as a health breeder.
And after I got that Therazino, I flew back up to the volcano to get a crystal to set up a greenhouse to start getting some crops to make sweet veggie cakes for Therazinos, as it heals them and would be great during boss fights. Then with the Phiomia, I started spam feeding it spin berries to get it to constantly poop, and with that, I used it as fertilizer to fertilize the crop plots. And then I flew out and found a beaver, which I decided to knock out, and then shortly after, it tamed. And after the beaver tamed, I cryopoded it, and then I flew up onto the top of Far's Peak, where I found a Dodic that I knocked out, and then after gathering some berries on the mountain, it tamed up. Which after cryopoding it, I brought it back to my base and started collecting some stone, as that's what Dodics do. And then with the beaver, I went out and started collecting wood. And with both this wood and stone, I crafted a behemoth gate frame, which I placed. And then shortly after gathering some more resources, I crafted the actual gate. And then I finished up the greenhouse with some roofs. And my crops had a lot of greenhouse effect now. And then I set up some compost bins to get some proper fertilizer for these crops. And then I got another behemoth gate placed. And then I got the gate for the gate. That doesn't make sense, but anyway. After getting the gate, I started placing some more spikes around to keep my base safer. And also expand the area I had in the base for when I needed to breed Therazinos. And then I went out and found a level 90 Thyla, which I decided to tame, as these guys are crazy good for doing caves, which I would need to start doing pretty soon. And eventually, the Thyla had knocked out in a forest near the redwoods, and when I came back with some cooked meat, I fed it, as Thylas prefer cooked meat unlike almost every other dinosaur. And after waiting for not so long, the Thyla had tamed up. And with this Thyla, I brought it into the cave just near me to retrieve an artifact. And this is also when I named my Thyla Freddy, as he looked a little bit like Freddy Fazbear with his colors. And after getting Mega Rabies in this cave, not only once, not even twice, but in fact 3 times, I was able to get into the middle of the cave and retrieve the artifact. And then after getting the artifact, I just ran straight out of the cave, not stopping until I could see the sunlight, which when I got here, I threw out my Argentavis to get back to my base, which I exposed as Terrorbird, after finding a high-level otter, which I decided I should tame, which is what I did. After feeding it a fish, it had tamed up. And then, it was around this day where I should mention I was collecting a heap of honey to craft veggie cakes. And this was a pretty bad attempt of it, but I decided to keep it in to show you guys that I was collecting honey during this. And then, when I was flying around, I found a frog, which after luring it back to shore with my Argentavis, I was able to knock it out, as I needed this frog to get some cementing paste, which after it tamed, I named it Kermit. I know, I'm creative. And when I was bringing it to the swamp cave, I found an Alpha Carno, which after getting it weak with my Argentavis, I pulled my frog out, as I wanted to get the final hit with the frog to give it a heap of levels so it would be strong enough for the swamp cave. That's what I did. I got the final hit, giving my frog a heap of levels. And then, I brought it into the swamp cave to get myself a heap of cementing paste. So I threw it out, and then went into the cave, where I started killing a heap of bugs, giving me a heap of cementing paste when I was sorting my inventory, and after a girl spat on me, breaking my armor, exposing me to the poisonous spores. When I got back to my base, I set up some sap taps, as I needed these to craft some veggie cakes, along with the honey. And then, I crafted some forges, and put them above my old forge, with some quarter ceilings. Then I flew to Herbivore Island to tame an Anki, as they are insanely good at getting metal. And after running around, I knocked it out. And when I was taming it, I found a 145 dolphin in the water, which I managed to tame. And then after bringing it back to shore, I cryopotted the dolphin, and then the Anki tamed up after a little bit more waiting. And after bringing them both back to my base, I decided to name the dolphin Bottlenose. And then I crafted a fridge, as my preserving bin was lacking for keeping honey. And then, with my dolphin, I went to the bottom of the ocean to collect some silica pearls to craft electronics. Then with my Anki, I flew up to the volcano to collect some metal to fill my forges. And then, after repairing my scuba set, I went back with Kermit to get some more cementing paste, which once again, and after a spat on me, breaking my armor, but this was bad, as I was much deeper into the cave, and by the time I got out, I was almost dead, as the spores were killing me. And when I got back, I got some more honey, and this I decided to keep in, as it was probably my worst attempt at getting honey. I almost died during this. I kept getting on my Argy, and then dismounted by the bees, constantly, but eventually, I was able to get a little breakthrough and run away, get onto my Argy, and fly off. And then, I also crafted an industrial cooker to start crafting some sweet veggie cakes in bulk with the honey I'd been getting, which I did. And then, I flew to retrieve the artifact of the pack, which I just showed on the map where it's located. And after fighting a heap of bugs on Freddy, I managed to get to the bottom area of the cave where I killed some bugs here. And then you can do this little trick in the cave near this water area where you grapple to this area, pull yourself, and you can get into this little crack in the cave with a grappling hook, and you can run down and retrieve the artifact. And I waited, hoping to get a second artifact for a long time, and none spawned in. So I eventually had to run off and go back to Freddy, which when I went back, he was gone. So I checked my tribe log, and obviously, yeah, he died to a Sarco when I was in the cave. So after grappling over this water section, hoping not to be killed by a crocodile, I just started running. And I did not stop running out of the cave until I could eventually see the sunlight, as well with my Argentavis, which obviously I flew out of that cave. Whilst I did manage to get the artifact, Freddy did unfortunately die. And then I decided to do another metal run, which after farming all the nodes at the volcano, I had to go to another mountain near it. And I was able to fill up all my forges with around 900 metal each, which was huge. And then, when I was flying around, I found a high-level Therizino that had a good melee. So after actually getting a trap for it, it ran around the side, as their pathfinding is a lot better in this game. But then it kind of just like slow motion walked into the trap, and then I was able to place a billboard behind it, trapping it in here, which then I was able to start knocking it out with my trank arrows, which is obviously what I did, until it passed out. Which when it was passed out, I had to just wait a long time until it was tamed, and when I checked its melee stat, it was pretty good. It had 40 points into melee. Nothing great, but I was happy enough to start using it as a melee line. So after cryopotting it and bringing it back to my base, I crafted this little area that I would turn into a hatchery for all the baby Therizinos that I would need to hatch. And after placing down a generator, I crafted some aircons to power to hatch the Therizino eggs. And then some footage corrupted on day 29, which all I did was I retrieved the artifact in the lava cave with a Therizino I bred, as I didn't have Freddy. And I looted this yellow drop in the cave, which had some nice gloves, but then my chest plate broke, and I had to run out of the cave as I was slowly dying, which I did. I ran out of the cave. And then when I got back, it was the same thing as just breeding Therizinos, hoping to get a perfect male and female, which I eventually did. They had the same stats, which is what you want to start breeding Therizinos for mutations, ideally in health and melee. And then, when I was waiting, I crafted up myself a chemistry bench, as my mortar pestle was pretty bad, and then I collected my sap taps continuously, as sap was an item to make veggie cakes. And then, with the Therizino, I went to another cave to retrieve the artifact of the hunter. And after running down the cave, when I got to the first room that had the bugs, I threw out my Therizino and then started fighting all of the bugs in this room. And eventually, after running down this little cave, I managed to get to this area where my Therizino couldn't fit through, so I just started hitting all the bugs through this little gap. And after I killed what I thought was all the bugs, I was able to retrieve the artifact. And when I got it, there was this spider that was in a wall for some reason. I don't know why, but it was a bit weird. So I ran out of the cave, and then I grappled up this section, as I didn't want to fight all the enemies, and it was quicker just to grapple hook up. And then, on my way back to my base, I gathered a heap of tributes for bosses I would need later on. For example, Spinosaur sales, like from here, that Spino that I killed. And then I flew back down to the bug cave to get some drops, as I needed better loot with my frog. And after spending some time in the cave, being careful of Arthroplurus and shooting them instead of fighting them, I was able to get towards the end of the cave and retrieve the artifact. And it's also worth noting that this artifact decided to respawn pretty much instantly, as you can see. And then I started getting this red drop. And there's this thing at the time I'm recording this, where if you log out and log in, the drop would respawn, which I spent a while doing, and as you can see, I got a lot of loot from this. Mostly Ascended items, and it was pretty good, but unfortunately, I did not get any Therizino saddles. And after putting all of my loot away, I was breeding Therizinos when I got a melee and a health mutation in the same batch, but they were different genders, which was good, as I would be able to breed these two together and hopefully get the melee and the health mutation on one Therizino. And when I was waiting for the 2 Therizinos to grow up, it's worth noting that I was cleaning up my base by putting all of my creatures in cryopods and putting them in this box, which is worth saying as it's important later on. And then after waiting for a day, both of the Therizinos had grew up and I started breeding them, hoping to get a Therizino that had both the melee and the health mutation together, which I was able to get from this Therizino here. When it hatched, it had both the melee and the health mutation on it. Perfect for a breeder. So I cryopoded it and brought it up to the top of my Therizino breeding area, and I named it 1 health, 1 melee, respectively, from its mutations. And after it grew up, it was back to the normal, just blending the babies that the Therizinos had made, hoping to get another mutation in either health or melee, which I got. I got this nice green body color, and I got a health mutation, which would be great. And so after cryopoding it, I managed to get a female, the opposite gender of it, to try and breed in the stats together, as it had the low melee. And after they both grew up, I started breeding them, and I was able to get 1 melee and 2 health on 1 Therizino. So I was actually starting to get somewhere with my melee line and health line. And when I was waiting for the baby to grow up, I accidentally whistled all of my Therizinos to go here, doing a big mistake, so I had to set them all back up on the breeding area, which sucked. And after it grew up, I was able to breed it, but I had this issue where it would only breed with like half of the Therizinos instead of all of them, which is weird, as it was working before, but it was still alright, as I was still breeding around 3 to 4 Therizinos at once. Then, I started crafting a big batch of sweet veggie cakes with a heap of honey that I had been collecting this whole time. And then, I went up to a cave to retrieve the artifact of the Sky Lord, and in this cave, you can't bring any canes, as it's such a small cave, and I would highly recommend bringing a good shotgun, like I did here, to kill all the bugs. And after killing this bat, I was able to be in the artifact room, which I was able to go down this little ledge and grab. And after I got it, I killed this bat, and I was able to keep running until I was able to get out of the cave. Back to my Argentavis, to fly back to my base. And then, after putting the artifact back in my base, I went to the artifact on Carnivore Island to retrieve the artifact of the Devourer. And when I got down to the bottom area near the artifact, I started to go ahead and kill all the bugs, so I would be able to safely hop off of my tame and retrieve the artifact. And after I got the artifact, I just ran straight out of the cave, but I got to a bit where you have to do some parkour, so I had to cryopod my Therizino and do these big jumps over the ravine cave. Now after doing this last jump, I was able to get into the water section of the cave where I could swim out safely. And after I swam out of the cave, I was able to go back to my base, where I was back to just blending the babies. After spending some time killing the babies with no mutations, I went back to the swamp cave to try and get some more drops. And I would keep it careful so I wouldn't get spat on by any alpha lures, breaking my scuba armor. And I spent days in this cave, logging out and in next to the artifact, and this is all the loot that I got. So many blueprints, so many saddles, so much armor, so many guns, and just so much of everything. But can you take a guess of how many Therizino saddle blueprints I was able to get from this cave? That's right, I didn't get a single Therizino saddle from this whole time in the cave. So I went ahead and grinded the materials, like oil, to craft an industrial grinder to grind all the items that I got, as I wanted to make use of them. So I crafted the grinder and put all of the items that I didn't want from the cave into the grinder. And then I grinded them all up, and I got so many resources. I mean, just look at this. It is absurd how much you can get. So after grinding it, I got a red drop, where I got a Basilo saddle and an insanely good pump shotgun. And that Basilo saddle might come to use right now, as I was with my dolphin, where I found a high-level Basilo near Herbivore Island, which I obviously had to start to tame, which I did. I was able to tame it by morning time, and when I cryopoded my dolphin to keep it safe, I started fighting all of the enemies that were attacking me when I was trying to tame it. but because of how many sharks there was, I had to run. It was insane. My Basilar was getting killed so quick, and it had so much health. These Megs in packs just deal way too much damage, and take less damage, making it super hard to kill them in big groups. And when I was swimming back to my Argentavis, I made sure to kill a heap of these little scorpions on the bottom of the ocean floor to get me a heap of black pearls, which I would need later on to craft tech stuff. And when I was going back to my Argentavis, I found a low-level Alpha Tuso, which I went ahead and started killing, which took a very, very long time. And I was able to get it to start running, which was good, as it meant it was low on health, but bad, as it kept using this ink attack where I couldn't see or move well. And eventually, when it was still running away from me, I was able to get the last hit on it, killing it, giving my Basilar a heap of levels and black pearls, as if you didn't know, an Alpha Tuso gives you a lot of black pearls. And when I got out of the water, back to my Argent, I loaded everything onto it, and then flew back towards my base. And as you can see, I was on Carnivore Island after I put all of my loot away to get all the high tier drops, where I was hoping to hopefully get a Therizino saddle blueprint from red drops. But all I got was a heap of loot, but I did get a Therizino saddle. Not a blueprint, but a saddle. And so with my Basilar, I went towards the easy water cave, where I got attacked by another Alpha Tuso, and it was once again somewhat low level. So I started to kill it, as I wanted the black pearls to make tech stuff later on. After spending some time, I got the Tuso to start running, and I was able to get the final hit on it, killing it, giving me a heap of black pearls. And with these weighing a lot, I went back to the surface to put it in my Argentavis, where I found an Alpha Leadsictus. I don't know what my luck is, but I'm finding way too many Alphas. And because of how easy Alpha Leadsictus are to kill, I was able to kill it in a few seconds with my Basilar. And with all of these Alpha drops, I made sure to go back to my Argentavis, where I put all of this stuff away, as it weighed a lot, and I wanted my Basilar to be quick when I went down into the easy water cave, which I did, and it's located right here on the map. And after going into the cave, I realized the lighting in here was really cool, and this cave was pretty easy. The only enemies were pretty much here, and it was just some jellyfish, eels, and some other fish, which were easy to kill with my Basilar, as it was super high leveled by now with all of the Alphas. And I was able to easily retrieve the artifact of the brute, so I just swam out of the cave after I got this. And then with this, I went to the hard water cave, where I placed a box to put all of my loot away. And after putting it all away into this box, I went down into the depths with my Basilar to go into the hard water cave. And not long into the cave, there was already eels, mosasaurs, and plesios, megalodons, in this cave, attacking me. It was a lot harder than the other cave. It's a huge step up. And in this cave, I took a wrong turn, which was bad, because I thought it was here to get into the artifact room, but it wasn't, so I just had to do a big circle around this pillar whilst getting chased by a heap of the biggest ocean predators in ARK. But after finding the area, you have to look for this pillar on the right of the cave, and after you find it, you have to go behind it, down to this little section where Moses can't fit through, luckily, and it's pretty chill, unless, if you're unlucky as hell like me, you'll have an Alpha Megalodon spawn in here, where I decided I could try and kill it with my Basilar, but after trying for a long time, there was so many enemies, and I was trapped at this corner, and my Basilar was taking thousands of health a second, as I was getting hit for hundreds of damage by heaps of these enemies, and it was bad. My Basilar would die if I continued to fight this. And so after tanking the damage for a while, I started trying to run, which I was able to do, so I lured every enemy back into the bigger area, and then after I lured them to what I thought was far enough back, I turned around and started going back towards the artifact, which I realized it hadn't spawned in for some reason, which sucked. So I decided to kill everything that followed me back into the artifact room. And then I would spawn in the artifact, as it was the only fair way. I wasn't gonna just wait here or exit the cave and come back later, as I had made it here fair and square. So I spawned in the artifact and grabbed it. And then I helped back on my Basilo, where I started swimming straight back out of the cave, hoping that I wouldn't get trapped in a corner and die. So I was able to get past the Alpha Megalodon, luckily, back into the big section of the cave, where I just swam straight past mimosa, eels, and many other of the other water creatures, like plessies. And eventually, I was able to get out of the cave, and the mimosas lost aggro as I was able to get out. So I started swimming back up to the surface, where I threw out my Argentavis and got back to my base, where I found an Alpha T-Rex next to an Alpha Carno. I don't know what my luck is, but it's kind of crazy. So I threw out my Therizino when I got up to this rock, after cryopotting my Argentavis so it would be safe from these alpha creatures. And once I threw out the Therizino, I went and firstly killed the Alpha Carno so it wouldn't interfere with my fight with the Rex, which I killed next. Well, at least I would try to. So I went in for it, and I was able to kill it. But it got my Therizino quite low, and it was a strong-ish challenge. But I was able to kill it, giving me the Alpha Tooth from the Rex. And I found an Alpha Mosa when killing more scorpions on the ocean floor. I'm getting crazy luck with this, but it was great. But this guy took so long to kill. I was here for about 20 minutes, just clicking my mouse, attacking this Mosa, and I was eventually able to kill it, giving me the Alpha Mosasaur Tooth. One of the last Alpha things I would need to fight the Overseer, after activating the tech cave later on. And when I got back to my base, when I was flying back, I got a heap of tributes I would need to spawn in bosses later on, as it was better to do it in small amounts than one huge amount later on. And when I was breeding Therazinos, I was able to get 3 health mutations, which I started breeding, as I wanted to get this stat into a male to breed multiple at once, which I hatched. I got a male with the 1 melee, 3 health mutation. And after I cryopotted it, when I was waiting for it to grow up, I started painting all of my weapons with this nice black and blue color, as it looks very nice on everything, like armor and guns. And once I was done, I waited for the Therizino to grow up, where I started making a Therizino army to start getting ready to fight bosses. But I realized my imprinting settings were bad, which wouldn't allow me to get a 100% imprint, which was bad. And after my computer literally died for a few days, I had to do a lot of stuff with it, but after I logged in, I went ahead and tested ARK without mods, as I was just trying to test if ARK would load. And all of the dinosaurs in my cryopod were disappeared, which sucked. But with the cryopod mod, with the cryopoding gun, I was able to activate a setting which would give the baby Therazinos a 100% imprint. I'm sorry if you don't like this, but it was the only way, unless I configured with my settings, which I just wasn't wanting to do, and this would work fine. So I'm sorry if you don't like it, but it was a decision I decided to make. So I hatched a huge batch of Therazinos, and then cryopotted all of them to grow up and be strong Therazinos that would hopefully be strong enough to kill all 3 of the island bosses, and then later on, the Overseer. And when I was waiting for all of them to grow up after throwing them out, I found a high-level Daedon in the snow. So I kidnapped it and brought it to an iceberg, where I dropped it, and then I started tranking it with my trank gun. And it didn't take long to knock out, as my long neck rifle is really strong with trank darts. And after waiting a long time, the pig tamed, and it had good enough stats, which weren't that important, as I really only needed it to heal my creatures when they grew up. And when I was here, I found a decent level Uteranus, which I ran around and knocked out shortly after, which I would also need to fight bosses. And so after waiting for some time, the Uteranus tamed. And when I brought it back to my base, all of my Therazinos had grown up fully. So I started breeding my Therazinos and killing the babies to level all of my boss Therazinos, and I was able to get them all to around 40,000 health and over 1,000 melee. And I finished this with leveling my Uranus, which I got to over 50,000 health, which was great. And then I had to heal everyone with my Daedon, and this whole time took a lot of days, with killing babies and healing. And after I'd healed all of them, I crafted some Therazino saddles, and even though they were primitive, they would be better than nothing. And so with my army, I flew to the Green Obelisk, where I would try and fight the Alpha Broodmother. And so I gave all of my Therazinos a few veggie cakes, hoping it would be enough to kill this boss. And so after I got everything ready and all my dinos out, I started the fight. And after I teleported into the boss fight, I started to courage roar all of my Therazinos with my Uranus. And then I ran in to fight the Alpha Broodmother, the first boss of the ARK, and the first boss of this 100-day challenge. And then not long into the fight, I surrounded the Broodmother with the Therazinos. And after she got somewhat low in health, my Therazinos started to die quite quickly. I was losing Therazinos at a pretty quick rate, as you can see on the top of the screen. I was starting to lose hope, as I was losing a lot of Therazinos, but we pulled through and managed to kill the Alpha Broodmother. And I realized there was a supply crate, which after I ran up to it, it just contained the element and the trophy from fighting this boss. And in the rest of the time I had remaining, I went ahead and just grabbed the Therazino saddles and the Daedon saddle. And with killing it, gave me the Tech Replicator Engram, so I started getting the resources on my Argentavis, which I brought to the Green Obelisk, but I didn't have enough on me, so I had to grab some more metal, and when I came back, I was able to craft my Tech Replicator, and I placed it on my base, and this thing was so huge. It was much bigger than I last remembered it being. And because my pig died in the Alpha boss fight, I just found a low-level pig, which I decided to tame, as I needed something to heal all of my Therazinos, as the ones that were alive were so low on health. And when it was taming, I found a Karcher, which I went ahead and decided to kill, as I needed to kill Gigas to get Giga Hearts for the Alpha Dragon boss fight. A heap of lead into this Carcharodontosaurus. I fell down the cliff a bit, but it wasn't able to hit me, so I was fine with it and just continued to shoot it, until eventually the Karcher died, freeing up a possible Giga spawn, which I would need. And after I flew back to the Daedon, it had tamed, so I crypotted it. When I brought it back to my base, I just started healing all of the Therazinos, and I also started raising some more, as a lot of them died in this fight. And when they were growing up, I found another Karcher, which I went ahead and got low with my shotgun, and then finished with my Argentavis for some reason, freeing up another possible spawn. And then I went back to the first mountain, where I found a Giga, which I killed, giving me a Giga Heart, one of two that I would need to fight the Alpha Dragon. And when I got back to my base, I grabbed some of the Therazinos that were still alive from the original Broodmother boss fight, and went into the snow cave to try and retrieve the final artifact I needed. And most of the cave looked like this, just fighting a heap of high-level polar bears and yetis with some Therazinos, until eventually I got into the last room of the cave, where I killed all of the enemies and then retrieved the artifact of the Strong, the last one that I would need. And so after I ran out of the cave, I crypotted my Therazino, and then flew back to my base with my Argentavis, where I went ahead and grabbed some of the Therazinos as they had all grown up, and I'd leveled the new ones. And I brought them to Blue Obelisk to fight the Alpha Megapithecus, as I decided that this fight would be pretty easy with my Therazinos. In fact, I didn't even bother putting any veggie cakes in their inventories, as I was pretty confident with this boss being easy. And once I teleported into the arena, I was stuck on the Therazinos, so I just whistled them into a corner, and then I ran up to the big man himself, the Alpha Megapithecus. And after I got his aggro, I ran back down to my Therazinos so they could fight each other. And when I brought him to them, I whistled all of my Therazinos to attack the big monkey. And then I started to courage roar, boosting my Therazino stats, and as you can see, this fight has barely been going for a few seconds, and it's already losing a noticeable amount of health. And because of how low this thing's health is, I was able to kill it with no casualties from my Therazinos. And they were all pretty good on health. And so after I got the Megapithecus dossier on my screen, I ran towards its supply crate, giving me over 200 element and the Alpha Trophy. And when I flew back towards my base and put the loot away, I found another Giga, which I killed, giving me the last Giga heart that I would need to eventually fight the Alpha Dragon. So I grabbed it, and then harvested it for some reason. I don't know why, but I did. And with my tech replicator, I spent a heap of days just gathering resources, so when I did kill the Alpha Dragon and unlocked all the tech armor, I would be able to craft it without having to grind. And when I was flying around, I saw a shark that looked a bit big. When I spyglassed it, it was in fact a high-level Alpha Megalodon, the last Alpha I would need to kill. So I perched up on this rock, and then identified which shark was the Alpha, as I had lost which one was it. So after seeing which one it was, I got back up onto the rock, and then started shooting it with my sniper, which honestly felt pretty cool. Sitting on a rock with some badass sniper, shooting a huge shark in the ocean. I don't know why, but it felt pretty awesome to do. And after putting a heap of lead into this shark, I was able to finish it off with my shotgun. So after finishing it off, I went over to it and grabbed its Alpha Fin, the last item I would need. So I went over to Red Obelisk, and then threw out all of my Therazinos, giving them over 10 veggie cakes each. But I realized I didn't bring any of the tributes with me, so I had to go back to my base, grab them, and then start the fight. Which I would just have to hope my Therazinos were strong enough to kill, as this fight is super hard. It doesn't matter how much health your tames have, as it does a percentage-based fire breath. So it comes down to, can you kill it quicker, then it kills your army with this percentage-based fire breath. So I just whistled all my Therazinos to follow me until waiting for the big guy himself to land after he was sending his minions to attack me, where I got stuck on a bunch of my Therazinos, which was bad, as my Uranus was now taking a heap of the damage from the fire breath. And after I got out, I started to courage roll all of my tames, hoping that we could kill it before it kills us. But when I was fighting all the little minions that were attacking me, my Therazinos came to help me going off the dragon, which I didn't want. So I sent them back onto the dragon, and after hitting it for a while, it flew off. So I had to go back to just running around, waiting for it to land again, with my Therazinos trying to dodge the fireballs that it shoots, that you can see right there. And after waiting for some time, it landed again, coming straight for me, hitting me with another fire breath. So I sent my Therazinos onto it, hoping that it could kill the dragon before my Uranus would burn up and die, which was not going good, as its minions were constantly attacking me, and I didn't want to attack them back, as my Therazinos would come to help me going off the dragon, which I didn't want, as I just wanted to keep them killing the dragon. But eventually, my Uranus got so low on health that I had to, otherwise it would die. So I attacked them, and luckily, I was able to kill some of the minions, but it set me on fire again, killing my Uranus. Well, at least it should have, but I think this fire attack was bugged on this one time, as it just didn't do how much damage it should, which I would happily take. So I started to kill all of its minions, and somehow, with some miracle, my Uranus was able to survive, and my Therazino army was able to kill the Alpha Dragon after a heap of deaths, and I was super happy, as my Uranus almost died, and this is by far the hardest boss of the 3 on the island. So after getting its dossier, my Uranus was around 1,000 health left, out of 60,000, super low. So I ran over to the supply crate to grab my Alpha Trophy and over 400 element, which I totally deserved. And once I got back to my base, with all of the tech grants that I wanted, I started crafting a heap of tech armor and some tech rifles for the Overseer boss fight in some days. And then I started dyeing all of the armor with this nice color pattern that I used before on my shotgun. and this is how it looked in my inventory. A very nice black and cyan-y blue color. And with the tech helmet, I remembered you could toggle this visor where it highlights all the nearby enemies. And I also realized that the tech power punch with the gauntlets was like bugged, as you couldn't actually use it. And I even tried it on one of my Therazinos, and it just didn't deal damage. So I don't know why that happens, but I think it's pretty bugged. Which is fine, as the gauntlet's not very important at all. And with the low-level Daedon I tamed, I started healing all of my Therazinos and Uranus, as they were pretty injured. And then I went back up to fight the Alpha Megapithecus again to get some more element, and it went the same. It was super easy, my Therazinos absolutely destroyed it, with no casualties, and I was able to grab over my 200 element. And then I flew up towards the volcano to start throwing out all my Therazinos to do the tech cave, but there was a Giga guarding it. So with my tech suit, I flew around shooting the Giga until it would die, and I was trying to get it into the lava, but it just wouldn't go in. So I started shooting it, but when it got low, it ran into the lava and died. This allowed me to start throwing out all of my creatures near the tech cave, and after a long time, I was finally done. I had over 30 Therazinos up in the volcano, and I was just making sure everyone was on passive so they wouldn't attack anything in the tech cave, getting out of their lines, which would suck. So, I started the tech cave after I made sure everything was okay. And make sure, as you saw, I started it on Alpha. This is very important later on. Make sure to remember, I clicked on Alpha Tech Cave. But anyway, I started bringing my Therazinos into the cave, which started off great as one was glitched. But after I sorted it out, I got over 30 creatures into the tech cave already, and I still had over a minute left. So I went to get another group of Therazinos, which was fine. Everything was going good until when I came back with the last group of Theries, everyone was gone. And the counter on the top said I only had the 10 Therazinos I had with me. And the Therazinos I had previously in here were like glitching in and out of being visible. So I don't know what happened. It's something with ARK Ascended, because it's a new game, I would assume at least. But it sucked. I had lost all of my Therazinos, my Uranus, which had all of my bullets on me. So this was bad. But I waited until the tech door shut, just hoping that maybe they would come back. But after the tech door shut, it was the same. I only had the couple Therazinos that were with me. So hate the video if you will, but I started spawning in some Therazinos and leveling them to similar stats. You might be thinking that it's too overpowered, because spawning in the saddles gives them a bit better than primitive, but they wouldn't have an imprint, they would have less health and less melee most of the time. And I would spawn in much less than I had, as when I was bringing everyone in, I had over 30 creatures in, plus the 10, so I should have had around 40-ish creatures, if not more, but I decided to only spawn in around 15 to 20 of these Therazinos, as I decided that that would be only fair, as they had somewhat better saddles, and plus, they were just cheated in, which doesn't make it feel right if you have the same amount, because, you know, it just spawned in. It's not the creatures that you worked for, it's nothing really. But anyway, I started going down, clearing the creatures in the tech cave with the 10 Therazinos that were imprinted. And these was the only strong Therazinos that I had in the cave that were imprinted and had the good melee, over 1,000. And I also took my armor off just to be safe, as there wasn't after a clearer, as you can see. But then, I got towards the end of the tech cave, where I sent all of these current Therazinos down into this last area. And then I went back up to my Uranus, which I brought back down into that last section where I dropped down, and then waited for all of my Therazinos that were following me to drop down towards me. And on day 100, I activated the terminal that would teleport me into the Overseer's room. And when I did it, it was green for some reason, the color of Gamma. But I decided, you know, it might just be a visual thing in ARK Survival Ascended. Even though I clicked Alpha, and it should be red, it might just be green, because in ARK Survival Ascended, they changed it. And I just was hoping that it would be Alpha, as I'd worked so hard for my Therazinos and killing the 3 island Alpha bosses. But once I teleported, I got into the room where the Overseer lies. And I started admiring the rooms where all of the 3 island bosses live. Starting off with the broodmother, and they'd retextured all of these into the colours of the obelisk they were near. I mean, look at the dragon area. It was just fully red, and it looked so much better than the actual arena. And after looking at the dragon one for a bit, I went to the Megapithecus's one, which was just as nice. They did a really good job with the colours on these rooms compared to an ARK Survival Evolved. So after looking at them, I went back to my Uranus and started running down the hall towards the Overseer. And I got to the room overlooking the whole Ark, where the supply drops came, and I even tried to look for where my base was from up here, which I could kind of tell where it was, but I just continued to run down the hall towards the Overseer, making sure that all of my Therazinos were following me just fine and no one was lacking behind. So when I ran down, I started the fire. The pillars around the arena started forming, and I ran towards the center, where once I did, the Overseer started to spawn. Its pieces started coming together, and the center pillars started forming. And once it was alive, to my dismay, it was on Gamma. It was green. I don't know why. It might have been because I crashed in the tech cave, but I didn't show that. But it might be that, I'm not sure. But as you saw before, I did click on Alpha, so I'm not sure why. Tell me in the comments if you know. But anyway, I just started fighting with my Therazinos, knowing that we would be able to absolutely destroy it on Gamma. Got into the fight around halfway. I decided that it was just too easy to finish a 100 days video like this. So I whistled everyone on passive and left them here at the edge of the arena. And I started to do the rest of the fight myself with my tech armor, my guns, hoping to make the fight a little bit more harder than just a quick drop with all of my Therazinos. So I started shooting the Overseer where it stunned me, which was a very common trend. And then after waiting for it to go around this pillar, I was able to start shooting it. And after I shot it for a while, it turned into the Megapithecus, which I started shooting with my fabricated sniper, and it went straight for my Therazinos, where it just absolutely threw this huge rock at them, dealing a heap of damage. It was fine, as I didn't care about them anymore. I just wanted to do the rest of the fight on foot, as it seemed a bit more of a challenge than just killing it easily with my Theras. And after shooting the Megapithecus for a while, I was able to kill it. When it launched me back, I looked up to this area, where my Therazino and my other creatures that I disappeared were alive, and I had marked them. But I thought it was pretty cool that the actual Ark was on a different space pillar than the space station that the Overseer is on. I just thought it was pretty cool to mention how it's on a whole different island area. But anyway, well, after it put its shields down, I started shooting its robots, and then started shooting it, until eventually the Overseer got to low enough health where it started transforming again, and it turned into the dragon, which I started shooting, and it was aggroed on me, not the Therazinos, which was fine, as I tried to fly with my tech jetpack and shot it until it died, and then it turned back into its Overseer form. So after shooting it with my sniper, the Overseer had died. I killed it. Even though it wasn't Gamma, it still felt like an accomplishment to beat the island in 100 days in ARK solo. And so after killing it, I ran to Ascend. And I just want to say thank you all for listening to my voice for almost an hour. I appreciate you all so much, but have a good day. Thanks for watching. And here's the Ascension cutscene.